Hello and welcome to the Tech 10 podcast. This is Alex Roux of Big Ten Network, and today's guests are Rutgers wide receiver and NFL draft hopeful Bo Melton and Big Ten Network manager Research Harold Shelton. Let's get into it.
Take a look, listen, and enjoy. Look at here.
With the catch, the finish! Oh, my goodness! What a catch!
Oh,
energy,
my goodness.
enthusiasm. It's picked off! Selfish! Brilliant!
He's still going! Touchdown!
All right, first guest, like I said at the top, is Bo Melton. He was a standout player at Rutgers for the last several seasons, one of those do-it-all wide receivers who should have a chance to make an impact in the NFL this upcoming year, especially as we talk about Bo, the way the league is shifting more and more toward playmakers who can catch the ball, run out of the backfield, contribute on special teams, and those are things that Bo did at Rutgers throughout his time there. So it's good to catch up with him. He was always a good personality. I know we'd crossed paths at media days in the past, and just a good dude who you wish the best for as he enters the professional stage of his football journey. So get into that discussion with Bo Melton. The Scarlet Knight starts right now. All right, I'm very pleased to be joined by a star wide receiver, all-purpose player from Rutgers and a Big Ten name we are almost certainly going to hear in the upcoming 2022 NFL draft. It's Bo Melton. Bo, what's up, man? How are you?
Good, Alex. How you doing today?
Doing great. Appreciate you jumping on, and just want to catch up, off the top here with what you're doing in kind of that weird limbo time between Rutgers and the draft. So how are you keeping busy? Where are you working out? What's kind of the process been like?
Of course, yeah. Staying busy, working out at Bomarito Performance Systems down in Florida. Just grinding every day, waking up, just going out there and training right now.
Yeah, down in Florida, not too bad with a little bit of better weather than you get in Jersey this time of year. So take me through, just kind of how your life has changed as you get ready for the combine, first of all, because that's a big deal. You're invited, one of a couple of Rutgers players to get that call. So what's kind of the adjustment from going to school and hanging out at Rutgers and now hanging down in Florida?
Yeah, the moment's surreal, just being able to just come from Rutgers and be able to come out here and train and get a combine invite. I've been dreaming of this my whole life and dreaming of playing in the NFL. So just to be in that moment, just to be out here training for that moment feels awesome for me and my family.
Yeah, you were down at the Senior Bowl. How was that type of atmosphere different than maybe like other showcases you had coming up, whether that's high school? Just take me through what it was like seeing your fellow college stars, getting to compete against them and go down to Alabama and show out.
Yeah, of course. Just going down there and competing with a lot of the best talent, in college football was an amazing experience. Got to meet a lot of people from NFL teams, a lot of people from other teams, just picking everybody's knowledge and just getting to know people was a great experience. And being able to show my explosiveness, my versatility on the field in front of the teams was a goal of mine. And I think I did that.
Do they let you keep those jerseys? Because I'm not going to lie, those jerseys are kind of clean. Like usually sometimes they look generic at some of these things, but those were nice. Oh,
yeah, absolutely. I kept them jerseys, kept the practice jerseys. I got all them jerseys. I'll give it to my parents. I'm going to hang that up.
There you go. Reese's on everything. All right. We got that combine coming up in Indy, March 1st through 7th. How do you prep for something like that? Because it seems like such a weird experience, right? Like everything's so fine tuned. You got everything from like mental test to physical. What are the drills that you were focusing on primarily, and how's the prep process going?
Yeah, of course, focusing on the 40-yard dash is one of the biggest drills, and been focused on that a lot. And also with like the 3-cone, the L drills, the position drills that they will be doing, just getting ready to prep for that so that we're ready for the moment. Just doing all the things every day to make us ready for that moment.
So how do you get ready for something like the 40, right? Like obviously you can run it as many times as you want in preparation, but like how do you get that burst? How do you kind of test yourself? I wouldn't know, like last time I ran a 40 was in PE. So take me through how you prep for that.
Yeah, 40s is mine. You got to be just very mellow and fast with it, just being a faster guy. It kind of takes a lot of technique, kind of a lot of work, just working on the start to the your top end speed, just working on this the transition in between the 40-yard dashes, working on every type of split that you want to get. You just work on one piece of it.
Got you. And you're a versatile guy, versatile player. And that's really like the name of the league right now. You got guys like Debo Samuel, Cordell Patterson, a lot of these like super wide receivers, super backs who can, not only catch the ball, run, contribute on special teams. I feel like you're coming in at the right time, to the NFL for a guy of your skill set. So are you encouraged by kind of the way you see the league going?
Oh, absolutely. That's my game. I like to do is be versatile. Guys like Debo Samuel, guys like Cordell Patterson, like you mentioned, they play a lot of roles in the offense, and that's the type of thing I've been doing since I've been in college. And I feel like that's a great time to come into the NFL during the time of when versatile wide receivers are being at the big names. So I feel like it's a good time for us.
All right, you're gonna do a little exercise real quick. You don't have to answer these, but I know all kinds of players do comps with their NFL counterparts, right? So like, you look at somebody and say, "Oh, I got the hands of AJ Brown and got the speed of Tyreek Hill," something like that. So if I give you, a category like hands and speed, can you name a counterpart in the NFL that you could match it to? So like, if I asked if you have the hands of which receiver in the NFL, who would you say your hands are similar to?
I say my hands are similar to, I'll say Stephon Diggs. Yeah, strong hands. So.
Fellow Big Ten guy. How about what's your speed similar to? Which player?
Speed. I'm gonna say Jonathan Taylor, just because. Yeah, I'll say JT.
Okay, going running back, and then last one, versatility. What kind of versatility you got comparable to a guy in the league right now?
I'll say like Debo. Like we got the same role, type of playing wise.
Yeah, gold standard right there, Debo. All right, thanks for doing that. Now I want to look back at your Rutgers career a little bit. Obviously, playing early on, there were some down seasons, but you played through COVID and then get to close your senior year out with a bowl season. And obviously, going through a couple coaching changes, it was up and down. But obviously, you were one of the success stories in that team. So what are some of the favorite moments you look back on, you hold on to, and you might cherish, looking back down the road when you wrap up your NFL career? What are the Rutgers moments that you'll hold dearly?
I cherish a lot of moments. Biggest moments I cherish was like the way we stuck together during the COVID year. It was a hard year because COVID was out. A lot of people was getting COVID, but we was trying to stay away from that and stay together as a team. That was a big moment for our team, just to stick together and be able to be in like sort of a bubble and still be able to play them games. And I feel like that was a big moment. And starting off the year 3-0, my last season I was at, kind of gave us more juice and gave us more, excitement in the program.
And that COVID year was the year that crazy trick play happened. I think you had 2 touches on that with the schoolyard BS, as they would call it, in longest yard. I feel like they got to count that, right? Like, even if they got to retroactively go back and give you a touchdown on that, like, how does that type of play get called back? Because that was insane.
Yeah, that play was just ridiculous. Honestly, it's hard to say because we really practice that play. Like, everybody's like, you don't practice all them throws, but we do practice in the game stuff at Rutgers. There's a case for moments like that, and practicing that play, like having everybody fine tune and knowing the ball has to go backwards, and all of us just being a fine tune of it. It was kind of amazing to see. It got called back, but it was just probably one of the greatest plays, that got called back in history. So.
Yeah, maybe it didn't count, but it got a lot of YouTube views, and it still lives on in kind of the legend of social media and all that. So that'll be one they'll be showing kind of forever. All right, you got your brother Max. It's a DB. That's interesting to me because you got obviously yourself as a wide receiver, Bro's a DB. Do you guys go one-on-one, work out? Who's clamping who in the drills? Like, take me through what that's like. Are you still kind of putting him in his place as a little brother?
Yeah, Max, he's his own guy. He's his own man. He's really a great cornerback. He has so much potential, and he does a really good job. Just you can see last year how many picks he had in the first. He had like a pick a game in the first 3 games, and so to seeing him grow, seeing him being able to at practice, and me and him going against each other, being able to go one-on-one, and me getting him getting me going back and forth, stuff like that. He's really evolving to be a very good cornerback, and I think he's going to put on and show everybody this year.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Stephon Diggs, you got Stephon, and you got Trayvon Diggs as a counterpart as a defensive back in the Cowboys. Maybe you guys are the next to come up there as far as siblings on both sides of the ball. All right, Bo, like switching away from football a little bit, have you been watching what Rutgers basketball's been doing? Because I know they had a couple losses. You know, they had one last night, but they were on a real hot streak. Obviously, March Madness coming up. Do you keep up with the Hoopers at all?
Absolutely. I try to watch as many games as I can. I've seen what they did beating 5 ranked teams. I think it was on a 4 ranked team win streak beating the teams. And just seeing how they're playing very together. They're playing great basketball, you know, just having guys like Ron and Gio. Gio came in with as a player, and we talked about this way before it happened, probably like around freshman, sophomore year. But this is a great team they have, and they play together, they play hard.
Yeah, what did Gio talk about? Just coming up together, or what was kind of that discussion like?
Yeah, we talked a couple times before, like the freshman, sophomore year, just talking about, you know, we wanted to change programs around, you know, and be able to make Rutgers at the top. And I'm just seeing it surreally, like seeing him this year and seeing the team just come out and win a lot of games and win against ranked teams, like 4 ranked teams in a row was really, that's a milestone that they hit. So.
Yeah, it's been great to see what both of you guys have done. And I'm a big Geo Baker fan as well. So awesome to hear you guys chop it up. How are your hooping skills, your basketball skills? You got anything, or are you just a strictly football player?
No, I could hoop, you know, hooping's I could play ball, I could play a little bit, and I really like going to the rim, but you can't really show nothing like in like street basketball because they just foul you all the time. But I'm like a go-to guy. I like to dunk. I like to go to the rim, take it hard. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say, could you do better than what we saw in the NBA dunk contest last weekend? Because that was kind of trash. I feel like you could have got up there and done a little better.
I haven't seen that NBA. I heard about it. I really heard about it.
You didn't miss anything. It was bad. If you could just put one down, I think that would top a lot of the dunks that were in that dunk contest. So, all right, Bo, wrapping up. Before we jump off here, want to just, you know, for anyone who might be listening that either lands you know, in the draft eventually or is getting to know kind of the draft prospects, just want to do a couple categories, rapid fire, getting to know you off the field a little bit, just your personality. So first question is, do you have any TV shows or movies that you like to stream or binge or watch in your downtime?
Yeah, I like watching Too Hot to Handle. That's like some Netflix show. It's just funny to me, and I like watching that as a Netflix show.
All right. What about favorite foods?
I like oxtails. It's just making food.
Okay.
My favorite food.
What about which social media app on your phone gets the most screen time?
Instagram, for sure. Instagram is the most.
And last one, what will be your first purchase when you get to the league, you know, when that first check hits?
I'm just getting stuff from my parents, you know. That's my first thing I want to do, you know, save a lot of money. So I'm saving it, but I'll make sure my parents get something really good.
All right. If that was a test, you pass. You know, if they ask you that in the pre-draft interviews, and you're already on the right track. So with the wise answer. All right, Bo, appreciate you jumping on, man. That's all I got for you, but really great talking to you in the pre-draft process. And best of luck. Going to be listening for your name at the end of April coming up here. And yeah, once again, best of luck and congrats on your career so far.
I appreciate that, Alex. Thank you for having me on.
All right. Thanks once again to Bo for joining, and best of luck to him in the next couple months as he preps for the NFL draft, next week's combine, and coming up with everything that goes into kind of the last stages of your non-professional football career. So shout out to him for chasing it, and wishing him the best of luck as the latest Big Ten alum to try his hand at the NFL. So we will move along now to the second part of the show. It's an interview with Big Ten Network Manager of Research Harold Shelton. If you've not listened to the show before or are unfamiliar, Harold usually comes on during the second part of each episode to talk about the latest in Big Ten men's basketball and football, and obviously with March Madness approaching, Big Ten tournament approaching, and the Big Ten basketball title race coming down to the wire here in its home stretch. There's plenty to talk about with Harold in the last week of February. So get into the chase at the top of the standings. We get into some bubble teams, which way teams are trending, Big Ten Player of the Year conversation, all that. It's coming right up, and we discuss it with Harold. So we will toss over to H and get right into it. All right, very pleased to be rejoined by Harold Shelton. H, it's been a hiatus for a little while, but we're back. We had to get back on the ones and twos for stretch run here. So how you hanging in?
Yeah, hanging in. Like you said, stretch runs coming up. These next 5 weeks or so are going to be very, very busy. We feel like we got through the dog days of February, and, now the fun begins.
February is the shortest and longest month always. Just how it works.
You're right about that. Yeah, I feel it too.
Yep. So March is right around the corner. Getting this out, like I said, before the final stretch run. We're like in the last quarter, if you want to break up into quarters of the Big Ten race. Got 4 or 5 games left for each team. And we'll talk a lot about that in a moment here. But want to chat about our guest on this episode. We got Bo Melton, who a fun guy to talk to and a fun player to watch at Rutgers. What do you remember about him now? As when Rutgers first joined the league, there wasn't a lot of like history within the conference to look back on. Now it feels like they kind of settled in and we know about the program and where some of these players start to slot in. So where does Bo Melton fit in that perspective?
I remember he was a big time recruit coming out. He's 4-star kid, top 300 kid. And, a lot of big things were expected of him. And I feel like he kind of got off to a slow start, but I think that was a lot of just the program in general. And once they got their footing under Schiano, you started to see the explosiveness. You got to see the versatility, the creativity in the ways that he was used, whether he's throwing passes, catching passes, running jet sweeps. They found ways to get him the ball, and he made it happen when he had it.
Yeah, we talk about it. It's kind of the versatility that the NFL is continuing to move toward. These guys who can contribute on special teams, maybe get the ball to out of the backfield and then get out in space as receiver. We see it with Debo and Cordarrelle Patterson, plenty of guys where, he might be able to fit. And you're right. You don't know how much of someone's production or lack thereof is a benefit of their environment, right? Like if you went to somewhere where there was an established cradle of QBs, like who knows what kind of numbers he might have been putting up.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it was still really good for him to put up the numbers that he did, despite, going through multiple coaching changes, multiple schemes, and the fact that, they kind of had to dial the offense back a little bit, even with having Sean Gleason and Schiano come on. The fact that he was still able to put up, the numbers that he did, the fact that he was still able to reach the end zone in multiple ways, it just shows the talent that he has.
All right, so let's stick on Rutgers while we are transitioning here football to basketball, because they have been the biggest story and like the biggest gap in our discussion since we talked last. We probably talked end of January, and same players at the top pretty much as when we left off there. But Rutgers was the team that hadn't gone on its run yet. They were interesting, but they were kind of the team that I would fold into the end of the discussion. Like, all right, which of this group here in the middle of the conference might rise up and make a run? Turns out it was Rutgers. They've been probably the biggest story of February for Big Ten teams making a move, and they made history, right? They won 4 games as an unranked team against ranked opponents in a row, and they just now recently lost their first game in a while, had that streak snapped by Purdue. So obviously it's surprising to the degree that you don't see this happen very often with a stretch like that, but do you think this Rutgers team was maybe built for a resurgence more than most across the college basketball landscape?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I think they had a lot of experience on the team. I know they were either top 4 or top 5 in terms of returning experience in the conference. And, they had guys like Geo Baker and Ron Harper who have, gotten some tournament experience. I think Cliff Amori, I always want to say Omarui, but Amori has developed more so, and he's become a reliable big for them. Likes to put dudes through the rim, very athletic, can rebound. And I think Paul McKay, taking the step, he's kind of become that third scorer that they lacked for a while, and he's become a much better playmaker too. So I think when you had those guys and you have Caleb McConnell literally just taking guards away, taking wings away, I think it just makes them, really, really tough to deal with. Steve Pike has done a really good job instilling culture there in terms of, being rugged, being tough, being physical. They dominated Michigan State on the boards. They dominated Illinois on the boards. And those are two teams that pride themselves on being tough. And Rutgers was definitely tougher in both of them in those games that they played in February.
Yeah, the only thing that can take them out of the tournament now or keep them out of the tournament is a combination of like some disastrous, regression at this point, or their ugly losses early on. So it'd be a combination of those losses hurting them and it going south from here, which I don't think will happen. But I kind of want to fold that early season slide into this question. Like, why do you think it took them a little bit to get going? Was it just because they lost Miles Johnson, Jacob Young? Like, I was surprised when they started off so slow, just knowing who they had back. At the same time, you lose a lot of production. It's kind of like Michigan, right? Like, everyone thought they'd be really good this year, and it's like, hold on a second, they're losing major players. So why did Rutgers lose some of those head scratchers? And do you think that's like completely out of this team's system at this point?
I do think it's out of their system. I think Geo Baker being hurt, had a lot to do with that. I don't think he was 100%. And I remember hearing, like, when Rutgers had all that time off during December with the COVID pause, that it was kind of a blessing in disguise for him because it allowed him to kind of get back to 100%, which he wasn't, in the early part of the year. And so I think once he got rolling to complement Ryan Harper, it certainly helped. And then once Paul McCahey joined the fray and became the playmaker that he's been, it's made them much more balanced offensively. You can normally rely on them for defense and rebounding, but now they have, playmakers, they have shooters, and they're much more balanced in terms of being able to shoot threes and going inside, whether it's, driving, whether it's McCahey driving or whether it's, dumping the ball off the cliff and him getting the bucket. So they've done a really good job. And I feel like they probably need 2 more wins, I think, to feel safe in terms of making the tournament. I don't want to punch their ticket yet because there's still work to do, but they've gone from being completely off the radar to controlling their own destiny. And not only that, we're talking about potential double bye, for the Big Ten tournament. And, they hadn't finished, higher than 7th since he's been there. So, I mean, Pico's done a really, really good job. And if Wisconsin doesn't win the league, then I think I would vote for Pico for Coach of the Year.
Yeah, love Steve Pico. Just seems like he keeps that group level, the whole program. He's I remember when he was hired and it's like, well, that track record's there. If he can just do, maybe a fraction of what he did at Stony Brook, like, Rutgers is in good shape. And I think he's exceeded, even my high expectations when he was hired. And I just, like, personal interactions, like, nicest guy ever. I see why guys want to play for him. And I think Rutgers will be a nightmare for non-Big Ten teams in the NCAA tournament. Teams that wear you down. Like, I feel like it's like when I used to watch, like, St. Mary's in the tournament and guys that would just, like, clawed you to death, and every time there was a 50-50 ball or some break that could go either way, usually teams make those breaks. And I just remember watching, like, those Dellavedova St. Mary's teams and seeing, like, Paul Mulcahy, and then now, with the playmakers like Baker and Harper, it's kind of like am I crazy? Patty Mills was on those teams too, wasn't he, back in the day?
I know he definitely saw St. Mary's. I feel like, I don't know if they crossed over at all, him and Dellavedova, but they seemed like they always had good guard play.
I hated watching them because usually it'd be like they'd be playing Wisconsin in the tournament or something. And right. I'd be like, how have I watched this Wisconsin team run through the Big Ten all year and St. Mary's has got them in a pretzel? But right. I feel like that's what Rutgers is going to do to somebody. And they got that added chip on their shoulder from the Houston game when they probably should have been going to the Sweet 16 last year.
Yeah, exactly. I think Rutgers could be a huge problem for some people. And, I know we talked about the losing streak or the winning streak getting snapped the other day against Purdue, but you're not going to run into too many teams like Purdue in an NCAA tournament unless you get deep into March. I don't think you'll be seeing a team like that in the first 2 games. So I wouldn't be shocked if Rutgers, if they continue to play the way that they're playing, if they became a second weekend team.
Yeah, and the other team that has risen and boosted its profile and stock since we last talked is Iowa. And like Iowa always was kind of up there in the advanced rankings. Like the Net and KenPom have liked them most of the year. And they were kind of in that middle when we last talked, but they finally, I think, have gotten that signature win. I think you can call it that, over Ohio State. And they just kind of steadily been getting better and looking more like the Iowa teams of the last few years, where they're just really hard to contain offensively. What are your thoughts on Iowa now that just knocked off your guys the day after recording this, and have proven that they're going to get a pretty good seed in the NCAA tournament if things continue on this path?
Yeah, it was weird with Iowa because, like you said, they, the advanced numbers loved them, the Net loved them. And before the Ohio State game, they didn't have a quad one win. And you're wondering, like, how does the Net, love them so much? And yet you look at their resume, they don't have a ton of good wins. Like, they got some quad twos and stuff like that, but they didn't really have like they won this game. And then they went to Columbus and they pretty much controlled the last 30 minutes of that game and pretty much eliminated EJ Liddell from the Big Ten Player of the Year race. And then they followed that up by completely running Michigan State off the floor. And you see how special Keegan Murray is. And you see when they want to defend and when they want to lock in, they could be a problem because they switch a lot of stuff. They got a lot of long limbs with both McCaffreys, both Murrays, Rabracha. They like to play a lot of guys as it is because they play fast. And they seem to be a little bit more athletic than they have been in the past. And, I can see them being a problem because what you need in the tournament is you need to do to get a bucket. When stuff bogs down and the game slows down a bit, you need a dude that's going to get a bucket. And they clearly had that in Keegan Murray, top 5 scorer in the country, one of the Player of the Year favorites in the league. I think Iowa could be really tough. I think they're tied for 6 now in the standings. And I feel like they need him and maybe a couple other guys with him to finally get to that second weekend, which they haven't done in over 20 years.
Yep. Stonks going up for Iowa and Rutgers. We'll talk some teams that are sliding now, and including your boys who are on the wrong end of Iowa and Illinois, the game before that over the weekend. And Michigan State is hitting that regression hard. We talked about when they were creeping in the top 10, was it legit? Were they that type of caliber of team? And they've struggled. So what do you think is wrong? What kind of outlook do you have for them to potentially turn it around? I know we've been talking about the one thing that hasn't changed over the long layoff we had was talking about Tom Izzo tying the Bob Knight record for most wins as a Big Ten coach. And like, we've had all this stuff ready to go and haven't got a chance to share it yet because they're sitting one shy of Bob Knight's 662nd win. So there's all kinds of, I guess, qualifiers wrapped up in that question, but diagnose the Spartans for me, and what's your outlook?
How long you got?
I know you'd have plenty to say.
Yeah, feels like it might take a while, but I'll try to be as brief as I can. I think they've really struggled with the wings over the last 6 weeks or so. And I think part of their success early on was Gabe Brown was making a lot of shots, and he was also doing a lot of little things. He was active on the defensive end. He was active on the glass. Max Christie looked like he was going to be Big Ten Freshman of the Year, kind of heading into mid-January. And both of those guys, their jumpers have left them, and they aren't doing much else on the court. And so I feel like between that and then the fact that they just, like the normal Michigan State tenets, which are, defense and rebounding and being physical and getting out and running, like they aren't doing any of those things right now. And so, this is Tom Izzo's worst defensive team since 2006. It's his worst, defensive rebounding team in 5 years. And they don't have a leader. And his best teams usually have, a point guard that can take control of games, can, if stuff bogs down, they can get a bucket. And they don't really have that. They tried the point guard switch with AJ Hogarth for Tyson Walker, and I think it's benefited both of them. But neither one of them right now are leaders of that team, and they both have flaws that other teams can exploit. And right now, they just look like a team that lacks a lot of confidence. That Iowa game was pretty much over 10 minutes in, and you kind of saw the way it was going to go, and you kind of figured they weren't going to come back. And it's, they've been very inconsistent all year. Like we saw Tyson Walker go crazy in the second half against Illinois, and then he didn't want to shoot against Iowa last night until the game was pretty much over. So you just really don't know what you're going to expect from them game to game. And, the way it's going, they probably need, I'd say, another win to feel somewhat comfortable about Selection Sunday. And the way the schedule, it looks coming up, I mean, they still got Purdue. They're at Michigan. They're at Ohio State. And then you get Maryland at home. Maryland almost beat them. They needed a buzzer beater to beat them, back in January. So, it's a tough time right now for sure.
That Penn State one, I think, is the killer, right? Because
Yeah.
it turns a up and down couple of weeks, which is pretty common in the Big Ten, to like a extended slide. And they were up sizably in that
14,
game.
14 in the second half. You let them get back in it, and you let John Harrah manhandle you on the boards, and here you are.
It was an all-time heater though from Tyson Walker. Like that was insane on this past Saturday. I the only thing that it reminded me of that I could reference was Demetric Trice last year doing a similar, similar type of binge scoring, where he just couldn't miss.
Yeah, and both times Illinois survived on the road and got out of there with a win. It was crazy. Just because like he was billed as a scorer, and then when he got to Michigan State, he was kind of more of a facilitator, and Izzo even wanted him to shoot more, but it seemed like he didn't want to shoot more. And it was a guy that was in his head, and it seemed like once he and Hogarth were playing together, it allowed him to just worry about scoring. Like Hogarth is going to be the point guard. You don't have to worry about trying to set everything up and go through the plays. Like just go get buckets, and he did. And like you said, it was, if they had another couple minutes, maybe they pull it out. Who knows? But Trent Frazier with the dagger three, for Illinois to get out of there and stay at the top of the Big Ten. So yeah, your boys, they dodged one for sure. You hate to see an effort like that go to waste.
Those Illinois and MSU games are always close lately, always tight. No matter what, it seems like it's, a couple of years ago, I was at the one where Michigan State was up 20, Illinois came back, take the lead, and then Tillman had the dunk. Then there were the two this year that were both big comebacks involved. And I'm trying to remember last year, Iowa also got hurt in the one because they only played once last year, right?
Yeah, they only played once last year.
And that was Michigan State outplayed them in that, but it was still close enough where you can kind of consider it a close game. But I feel like there's been a lot of good ones lately.
Yeah, and I remember Io hitting a dagger as a freshman to upset like a top 10 Michigan State team. So yeah, it's definitely been some fun games between those two.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to your alma mater for that Purdue game this weekend, MSU against Purdue on Saturday. So I'm going to need the preview or the tour or like itinerary or something. I have been promised I hope I'm not jinxing it, some sort of like behind the scenes tour or look at Breslin Center. And I don't know if the practice facility, like how connected that is, but I'm hoping to get kind of the tour by my boots on the ground there. So I'm at least looking forward to that for sure.
Yeah, that'll be fun, especially with all of the renovations that they've done there with the Gilbert Pavilion and the Draymond weight room and all this stuff. So it's I haven't gone in a few years, so I haven't even seen all of the new stuff. But I know there's like the Hall of History there named after Izzo, and they've got a bunch of add-ons that look pretty cool. And the practice facility's right connected to the Breslin, so that shouldn't be an issue for you.
All right, excited. I'll come next time with my review and
let me know
all the things I did for sure. All right, so Michigan State sliding, Indiana also sliding even further. Like they're probably out of the tournament picture at this point, right? They got some work to do. I feel like I've seen them on first or next four out type of projections. We just did the first version of the seed board with Andy Katz today, and he had them out. So is Indiana? They still have a window to get back in. Obviously, everyone does with the conference tournament, but what's it looking like beyond, them reverting to the last few years, just with a lot of the same guys in there, lack of perimeter shooting, and Trace really just not being, um, Trace killing it obviously in the stat sheet, but maybe not having enough around him to lift that team to the tournament at this point. It's looking like deja vu right now.
Yeah, they're gonna, if they miss the tournament, they're gonna really kick themselves for that Ohio State game the other day. They had that
Wisconsin
game
too.
won. Yeah, the Wisconsin game where they had a huge lead. There was a 22-point lead in Madison and let it go. And again, Ohio State the other day, they played really well defensively, had a lead late, just needed to get one more stop, couldn't get it, and lost in overtime. It's been the same issue where they don't get enough from their guards. And that was the issue under Archie. It seems to be the issue here. Obviously, it's only year one under Woodson, but it's still been the same issues for the last few years. And I feel like with Trace, whenever he's facing a big that is just as big, if not bigger, he's not nearly as good as he is against other teams. That we saw him against Wisconsin, and he was great because they don't have that athletic big to deal with him. But like we saw against Purdue and we've seen against Illinois, he just isn't that same big. Like he's not nearly as effective. And even Michigan State, had enough, athletic bigs to kind of move him around so he wasn't as effective. Right now, just kind of looking at the bracket matrix, they have Indiana as a 12, like they're bunched in there with Michigan and Rutgers right now. Very close to like that last four in play-in situation. I don't want to say that they're out, but they're certainly trending in the wrong direction. I think they probably need a couple of wins to feel secure about getting in. But I'm not throwing dirt on them yet. I don't think they're out, but they need to get some W's here in these last couple of weeks. And I don't know if they're going to win in West Lafayette. So they got to find some other games to do them in.
Well, if Wisconsin takes home a share outright Big Ten title, they got to send like a thank you card or a piece of the trophy to Indiana, right? Because it was twice that they were down big to Indiana and came back and won, I want to say.
Yeah, because even the game in Bloomington a couple weeks ago,
they weren't up huge, but they were controlling that game.
Right. Like they were definitely up like a couple possessions at the under 4 media timeout, and Johnny Davis went Johnny Davis and just took the game from which happened the first time too. Like you said, they've just had issues closing games late, and outside of the game against Purdue at home, that seems to be a recurring issue where they need some play from good guards and they don't get it. And like the Northwestern game where they were missing a couple of guys, it was the same thing where that game, they had a chance to win it and they didn't. And it's just kind of been the same old story for the last few years for the Hoosiers. And I think because of that, now their backs are against the wall. And again, I don't think they're going to win in West Lafayette. So they got to find a way to get another couple wins somewhere else.
Yeah. And that was the Tyra Bus game. I don't want to like get into it too much because I know like, I think she was upset by fans calling her out for wearing the Wisconsin garb from her fiance's closet, I assume. So if those listeners don't know, the Hoosier legend, women's basketball legend, Tyra Bus, engaged to Brad Davison, and she was catching some heat for wearing the Wisconsin gear on the sidelines. I just want to know your take. Like, I'm not casting judgment either way, but I want to know your take on like if you would ever wear another school's college apparel, either for the wife or for anyone special to you, or just for any reason if you're like visiting and buy something in the bookstore.
Shout out to the wife for also being a Michigan State grad, so I don't have to deal with those kind of things.
There you go.
But I kind of like how Big Dog did it when Glenn Robinson III was playing at Michigan. He just wore a black shirt. He didn't have to wear the colors of either school. He was just very neutral. And I feel like I would be that same way. Like, I don't have to wear the gear of another school, but I don't necessarily have to wear the gear of my school. I could just wear a white shirt, a black shirt, a gray shirt, like whatever is neutral, and do it that way. I would have a hard time if, say, I have a son or a daughter and they play against Michigan State and I'm wearing the opposing colors of Michigan State, I'd have a hard time with that. So I think I wouldn't wear Michigan State gear because I would be fully in support of, my kid or my nephews or whatever. But I can't see myself wearing the other school's garb. I don't see that in my closet at all.
Yeah, despite working at Big Ten Network, I have not softened on like the wearing other gear of other schools.
Yeah, I haven't done it.
Like I'm just that's my like final frontier of like I'm a complete meatball when it comes to that, and like it's more of like an identity thing. Like I don't want someone else to see me and think that for whatever reason I went to another school. Like it's just a weird like self-perception type of deal, and I've argued with people about this. Like I had a friend who wore Notre Dame gear to a football game because his girlfriend was there. And I thought that was completely unacceptable. And I was just like, you didn't go to Notre Dame. Like, why would you want to wear that? Like, I can't understand why somebody would want to put themselves in that. But I also understand that I am completely irrational when it comes to this take. And like, it really doesn't matter in the long run. But I agree. Like if it was some sort of conflict where I was at a game on behalf of someone else or like connected to somebody else, I'd probably just go neutral with it. I think I'm also I find this amusing, this situation, because I remember when Steve Stricker, the Illinois golfer and, PGA golfer, Wisconsin native, and I think Madison native, wore all Wisconsin stuff to an Illinois-Wisconsin basketball game. And I was like, what is that? Like that that was wild to me. And then there's just something about Wisconsin, I think, that like has a wider umbrella, I want to say, just because like you see like people don't even really have ties to it. Like Aaron Rodgers, I think, has worn Wisconsin stuff. Guys, who will go to Badgers games wear Wisconsin stuff. It helps that they've been like very cool and very successful, especially in recent history and in a lot of big games, and have kind of a wide celebrity net. And I don't know, it's just funny that this popped up with Wisconsin again, because when Tyra Buss was wearing it, I was like, that reminds me when Steve Stricker wore on Big Ten Network. I think that game was back in the early 20 teens. And I don't know, I don't think I could ever do it. Maybe like if a kid goes to another school, I would go to a game and wear their gear, but I don't know. It's just a hot button issue.
Agreed. And again, I might be viewed as irrational, and that's fine. I'll go on a rational island there with you. Look, when it comes to college sports, the only things you'll more than likely see me in are Michigan State or University of Detroit. Like I had ties to both, and that's pretty much all you're going to see me in. Like I can't wear anything else. Like it just doesn't feel right.
I also don't think, though, I mean, obviously this should go without saying, like you also don't heckle her for wearing it. Like anyone who was like actually getting mad and like to the point where they're shouting at her at a game or like tweeting, like that's too much. Like let her do her thing.
Right.
But interesting issue that I do have opinions on. So I wanted to bring that up. All right. Before we wrap up, what are your thoughts on the final home stretch for the Big Ten title race here? 3 teams with 4 losses. Obviously Illinois and Wisconsin will play, and games will be favored in before this comes out. But we also know that Purdue and Wisconsin play each other. So one of those teams will have another loss the rest of the way. And there's some interesting games coming up. We talked about Purdue going to Michigan State, Illinois and Iowa playing in the last game of the year. Wisconsin, Purdue is obvious, but Purdue also has to go to Indiana. And I think Wisconsin, I believe, has to go to Rutgers. So there's quite a few interesting games coming up. Do you see 5 or 6 losses still, like we had talked about? Do you see a shared title, an outright title? How are you seeing this in your crystal ball?
I'd be very surprised if it's not shared at this point. Again, and I know we've talked about this for a while, and I've thought Purdue was the best team the entire time, but the way that they started the Big Ten slate kind of allowed other teams to stay in the race with them. And so I think it's going to wind up finishing that way as well. I wouldn't be shocked if, the winner has 5 losses, and I could see 3 or 4 teams with that. Also in those games that you mentioned, Illinois and Ohio State play each other this week as well. I don't know if the pod will be out by then, but Ohio State can either get back in the race with that because they're only a game back in the loss column, or that will eliminate them pretty much, and it'll just be the 3-team race. I feel like Ohio State's kind of that forgotten team because they had a bunch of games to make up from like pauses and stuff. And now that they're starting to make them up, it's like, oh, like they're kind of still in this thing. And it looked like Indiana was going to knock them out, and they figured it out to stay in the race. So I'm not counting the Buckeyes out. I still think they've got some depth issues. So I don't know if they're fully in it, but they still have games in front of them where they can get some stuff done. And we can't forget Illinois, Iowa in the season. That's always fun. They don't like each other, as you well know. And so I remember it was some fun stuff in Iowa City back in December, and it's kind of wild that they haven't played since then. But the way that both teams are trending up right now, that game could be a lot of fun at the end.
Agreed. All right, last thing, we'll talk about the race that you think is just as intriguing as we discussed pre-show here, as maybe the title race in the conference standings. And I know you're into the player of the year discussion. So why do you still find this compelling? I mean, I think the surface answer is obvious, but I want to get into how the horses are stacking up here toward the finish line. Got a lot of great players in the Big Ten, and however we decide which one is going to be the best or name the best is going to be pretty intriguing.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's going to depend on who wins the league too. I think the race is so close between 3 guys that whoever winds up winning the title, that might be the tiebreaker between them. I think Johnny Davis, Kofi Cockburn, and Keegan Murray are like the 3 that have separated themselves. Even though I still think Jaden Ivey's the best player, I don't know if he's going to get enough votes over those 3 to win the award. EJ Liddell was in that mix, but I feel like the last couple of games kind of knocked him out, especially when Keegan Murray outplayed him in Columbus and got a win. I think it kind of pushes him back. He'll still be a first teamer, might be even second team All-American, but just in terms of player of the year, I don't think he'll win it. So I feel like anytime you see Johnny Davis, he comes out, he has a crazy game. They beat Indiana on the road, or he goes crazy against a ranked team and he gets 12 rebounds and 30 points and makes a bunch of shots later. You're like, oh man, how is he not player of the year? Then Illinois plays, Kofi's dominant, a casual 27-9 against Michigan State. Whenever they needed a bucket, they just threw it to him. He got a bucket, made his free throws late. And you're like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, Kofi's clearly got to be player of the year. And then Keegan Murray kind of struggled a little bit against Michigan. They lose. You think, okay, well, he might be done. They go to Ohio State. He dominates. They win, follows it up. Another cool 28 points, shows the versatility that he has. And you're like, well, he seems like the most talented guy. And so I feel like anytime like one of them is playing, they become the front runner until another player plays, and then he becomes the front runner, because it seems like they don't really have bad games at this point. Like Johnny Davis, I guess, had the bad game against Penn State. But other than that, I don't feel like there's been a bad game for any of these contenders. And I'd be shocked I wouldn't be shocked if like they had a split. Like maybe there's a cop out of, well, maybe there's, a co-player of the year kind of thing. And I know we've seen that in the past. I really do think it's going to come down to the last day though. Like when Kofi and Keegan Murray play each other, and if Kofi goes crazy and they win the league, like that might be the moment where he gets it done.
Yeah, it does feel like kind of like the Super Bowl MVP, right? Like it's going to go to the best player on the winning team. So, or the most prominent player, the quarterback of the winning team, I should say. So you're right. It's going to be really interesting. And we talked about it, I think, in a previous episode, how it seems like the depth of the contender pool is stronger and deeper than really, anytime I can remember. Like it's just a lot of big names, a lot of gaudy numbers, and it's been fun to watch. So coming down to it, H, appreciate, you catching us up, and I'm sure we'll talk again with all this, really going crazy here in the next few weeks. It's getting to my favorite time of year. So I'm hyped. I hope Big Ten can do better than last year in the NCAA tournament. But first we got to get to Indy, get through Indy, and hopefully put on a show there.
Yeah. I think we'll be much better off this year, even though the seedings might not be as high, but we have good guards. And we didn't necessarily have really good guards last year. And I think that was part of the reason why a lot of Big Ten teams went home. When you have Jaden Ivey and Johnny Davis, and I know Keegan Murray's not a guard, but he has the ball a lot. So I think when you have those three guys, they have a chance to take you really, really far.
I'm just going to go ahead and blame last year on the fact that the teams were in Indianapolis for like 2 weeks straight. That's the easiest explanation. It's like everyone else got there a few days earlier. Big Ten teams were there in confinement for like over a week and a half. And let's just blame that. Blame COVID.
It's a fair point. I got no argument there.
All right, H. We'll talk as soon as possible. And until then, appreciate you jumping on.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Always happy to be on.
All right. Thanks once again to Harold and Bo for joining the show. Great discussion with both of them. And now I want to give a special thank you to producer of this show, the editor of this show, Julie Bronder. This will be the last show she edits as she bids farewell to Big Ten Network and actually moves out of the country. I don't know what I'm allowed to share here in the podcast. I don't think it's really a secret, but Julie is moving to Spain and ending her run here at Big Ten Network after 14 years and 4 or 5 years or so of producing this show. So it's been a great run, and we wish Julie the best of luck. And I want to thank her for stitching these together each and every episode. I don't think she ever really missed an episode, despite her love of vacations. And I'm allowed to make that joke because I also like to take vacation time when I can. So Julie knows it's all in good fun, and she knows, I hope, that I appreciate all the work she's done on this show and elsewhere in our projects over the last 5+ years that I've worked here and the 14 that she has put in here at the network. So best of luck, and hopefully her final act as producer of the show will be helping me find a new one and train them so I don't have to do all this myself. So if you are so inclined to congratulate Julie and wish her the best, go on her Instagram, JulieRubes13, JulieRubes13, and send her a DM, and if you follow her, be prepared for a lot of dog content, and the dog will be making it to Spain with the Bronder family as well. So this is a tribute to Julie, and we'll wrap it up right there fittingly. Want to thank everyone for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon here on the Take 10 podcast.